Hey Kia, I just want to congratulate you. This is easily the best film you've made in your 10-year career. I think it's your masterpiece.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say, man. I mean, yeah, I think it probably is my best work. I would never use the M word about myself, but yeah, I'm really proud of it. Yeah, I like this one. It had the weirdest beginnings of any film I've made. So my producer just called me up and he wanted to know if I had anything on water. And I'm like, no, not really. Why? And he goes, well, I've got access to a giant water tank. Like, can you write something on water? And I was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, well, that's going to be a shark film, obviously. And I just knew in like 2 seconds what it was going to be. I was going to do a riff on the USS Indianapolis Beach from Jaws. And I was like, oh, God, like that's scary. Like that's big. I knew I couldn't do the American version because I think Nicolas Cage has already done that and I would have needed $85 million. So I did a bit of research and came upon, the story of the HMAS Armidale, a real story that actually happened in 1942 to Australian soldiers when, one of our warships was sunk by Japanese Zeros. And I just did a lot of research on that real thing and then just did my own riff on it. It's inspired by, not based on. And I just really connected in emotionally to it. For some reason, I just knew these characters immediately. Like the whole idea just jumped into my head. It hasn't changed much since like that initial little treatment that I wrote. And my grandfather died in the Pacific in World War II, and I read his war letters, and I was very connected into kind of him and getting to know who he was. A lot of that stuff went into the character of Leo, played by Mark Cole-Smith. It was weirdly personal. Like it felt important because I was trying to semi-tell a real story, and I was just sort of emotionally connected, through my grandfather, and it felt really good all the way through creatively,
From the beginning, we're really connected to these characters. It reminded me of Hacksaw Ridge. Was important for you to build a connection to these characters, especially have them training together?
I knew that, like, if you're going to jump into this narrative with 7 guys on a raft, you better care about them. Like, and the only way to really do that is a training sequence, or like they say in Team America, we're gonna need a montage. And I love a training montage. It's one of my favorite things, whether it's Rocky or Hacksaw Ridge or even like the hugely extended training montage in Full Metal Jacket. Like it's so good. Like so many ideas that you get when you're writing a training montage, because like you can kind of do anything. Like these guys are being yelled at, they're putting through their paces, like they're put into stressful situations. Like you get to know everybody, because you're dealing with a small unit, you're dealing with archetypes usually. There's the hero, the bully, the young, scared guy, the wise, strange guy, the angry young guy. You know what I mean? Like every archetype is there. So it's all kind of laid out for you. And if you've seen enough war movies, that stuff flows pretty well. But yeah, I knew if I got that, sort of training montage of like, 10, 15 minutes right, once people end up on the raft being munched by a giant monster shark, you would care about them. And so, yeah, we spent a lot of time making sure that was, a good sequence,
When you've made Australian films in the past, you have a tradition of having an Indigenous lead. What made it different this time?
This was different in that I've definitely had a lot of Indigenous legends in my movies. I have an Indigenous name and I grew up, learning a lot of Indigenous culture in school and stuff. And I've always been fascinated by our Indigenous cultures. Like, I just think it's one of the most fascinating. I don't know. They're just awesome people too. Like, just, yeah, super fun to work with, So like, if I can, I do as much as possible. This is the first time it's been a full lead though. And so I wrote this lead for Mark Cole-Smith. I wanted to work with him for years, and he's one of the best actors in the country. He just happens to be Indigenous, but he's one of our best actors. And so this one was different in that from the start, like as I was writing, I had brilliant Indigenous help from, sort of cultural advisors. And so at script stage, Wayne Blair was helping me out, brilliant Australian writer-director, Indigenous bloke. And he was helping me with, making sure that the cultural sensitivities and stuff were all correct. And then when Mark came on, he did the same thing. And because he's from Broome over in Western Australia, kind of near to where this whole film is set, he was able to help me make sure that all of that stuff was correct. And he's a great writer too. So some of my favorite lines, like he came in, he wasn't just doing the Indigenous stuff, like he was helping me like write the actual script. And I think his line, what is it? He goes, it's okay to be afraid, fear can keep you alive. it can also get you killed. You know, he's got that line. He bought that line, and I was like, oh man, did you just think of that? And he's like, yeah, something like that. And I was like, something like that. I'm writing that down. That made its way into the trailer, and that ended up being one of the core themes of the film. You know, I also kind of wanted to tell the story. I didn't want it to just be another bunch of white blokes with guns, you know? Like, I couldn't believe it when I found out that Indigenous soldiers were paid like a third of what white blokes were paid. And I'm just like, oh man, like, you know, they didn't get a third of their limbs blown off, you know what I mean? And like, some of the bravest soldiers we had were Indigenous or people of colour and whatever. And, you know, they came out and they fought in the war and they fought for their country. And then they had to go back into 1940s Australian racism, you know. And I just wanted to kind of tell that story. You know, if you're making a shark film, you can't just have sharks munching people. Like, those films are boring. You know, you need to have, like, you know, themes. And, you know, there are themes of, you know, youth in war, and, you know, themes of, you know, loss and trauma, and themes of, you know, cowardice and bravery. But also, we've got an underlining theme of racial tension. So, you know, it's sort of nice to have all of that stuff in the mix too, so that, you know, it's not just another film about something with a really big toothy mouth biting people, you know?
Beautifully said. You're shooting essentially in a giant tank. Was there any technical limitations involved, and how did you overcome them?
The problem with shooting in a tank is if you get it wrong, it looks terrible, and it looks like you're shooting in a tank, and it's like a nightmare. The good thing about shooting in a tank is it's a controlled environment. So, you know, you can be very safety conscious, and it's a lot easier to control a half-ton animatronic shark, like in a big, effectively massive pool, than it is, you know, out on the open ocean, as Spielberg found out in the mid-70s. I knew that we didn't have the budget to just go full volume screens the whole time, or green screens the whole time, because that would have just like quintupled the digital budget, and, you know, probably would have doubled the budget in the end. And so I had to think of a clever way. You know, we did use some volume screens. We could only really afford them for basically a week, you know, even less than that. It was like 3 or 4 days. And the rest of it, we just went, well, let's just hide it in a fog bank. Basically, we had this giant studio up in Hemmant in Queensland, and we just filled it with fog for like basically 5 weeks. And the great thing about fog is you can really light the hell out of it. You know, there's nothing like a whole bunch of fog to make those coloured lights pop. And so we were able to make it look, it was like Bram Stoker's Dracula with a fin, in order to keep it visually interesting, because they're basically trapped in the same location on a raft in the middle of debris for 70 minutes. We decided that every single scene would be different. You know, we'd go from these, you know, sort of like just darkness and fire, you know, when the warship first goes down, into sort of these dusky blues, into, you know, gorgeous pink sunrises, blood red sunsets, and at night, you know, we'd put bioluminescence in the water so that you've got this neon green steampunk kind of science fiction look to it. And, you know, I figured if we just pulled out all the stops visually, we could keep, you know, audiences sort of visually stimulated. And also we'll end up with a shark film that doesn't look like every other shark film out there. Like 95% of shark films look like Jaws, which is blue sky, blue water, whatever colour the boat is, and some yellow here and there. You know what I mean? It's the same colour palette over and over and over again, and obviously red in the water for the blood. But we've got a film that looks like a constantly shifting rainbow of, you know, hyper-saturated colour.
Yeah, it's a very gorgeous-looking horror movie. You and the cinematographer did an amazing job.
Mark Wareham is just a photographic god. I want him for all my films. And hopefully, yeah, he's going to shoot dogs, you know, so hopefully a lot of the same crew are going to return for Dogs of War, you know, which we're looking to shoot January, February, March-ish.
Mate, I can't wait to see what you do next. And last one for the audience, where can people watch Beast of War? Beast of War is being released in Australia on October 9, in America October 10, and I think concurrently over Europe at that same time. So it'll be in cinemas for a little while, and then we'll, you know, go straight to streaming. Go out and watch a shark film, guys. You know, this one's fun. There you have it. Go out and see it. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Kiah, and speak to you soon. Thanks heaps, Nathaniel. Yeah, I really appreciate it, man.
On the battlefield, there's only you and your mates. All you've got are your mates.
She'll be back.